Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com.
June 14th, Phil Robertson.
Blessing your enemies is hard, but it leads to God-given joy. God used duck calls to change Phil Robertson's fortune. God used His Word to change Phil's life. If you've ever seen the reality show on A&E called Duck Dynasty, you've probably seen Phil Robertson, the wise patriarch of the clan. With his long brown hair and his longer, not-so-brown beard, he looks like a penniless vagabond. But the duck call he invented made him and his family millionaires. Phil Robertson grew up in poverty and rebellion. He married Kay when he was 19, but marriage did not bring maturity. He drank too much, experimented with drugs, and had multiple affairs. When Kay told him she was going to leave him, Phil decided to straighten up and follow Jesus. Phil found a man who had once tried to introduce him to Jesus, but Phil had thrown him out of his house. This time, he asked the man to try again. Phil became a Christian and learned his first lesson: love God, love man, and try to be good. I decided I would try that. I'd never tried before. Now, Phil was an Arkansas fisherman and a hunter. That was his livelihood and his passion. And he explained how life was. See, you got your rednecks and your river rats. River rats were poor men who broke the law instead of getting an honest job, and they bothered Phil. River rats, unlike rednecks, were good thieves and often stole Phil's fish. But Phil had studied Romans 12. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. Do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12, 14, 17, 19, and 21. Robertson thought about the river rats, the banes of his existence. That day when he went down to the lake where he had laid a net, he heard voices, so he hid in the bushes. It was the river rats, and they were stealing his fish again. They're stealing my fish, Lord. Do you want me to bless them? Phil thought of Romans 12. Do not return evil for evil. Phil had caught these river rats with the fish before and usually roared at them and showed him his shotgun and threatened their lives. Like rats, they ran away. But this time Phil wanted to obey God and His Word. I wanted to see if this would work, but it definitely made no earthly sense for sure. Phil approached the rats and took his guns with him. I was going to be good to them, but I brought my gun just in case they weren't good to me. Phil approached the river rats as they were lifting Phil's net. He asked them what they were doing with his net. They pretended ignorance and said, "Oh, is that what this is?" "Here's what I'm going to do," Robertson said. "I'm going to lift that net, and whatever fish is in there, I'm going to give to you." The river rats were shocked, but not too shocked to take the fish. They left Phil, but they kept looking back at him with pleased confusion. From that day on, they didn't try to steal anything from the Robertsons. I figured that this meant God was right all along, Robertson smiled. Who can you bless today, even if they don't deserve it? Do something for them in secret and see what God will do. Blessing your enemies is hard, but it leads to God-given joy.
Hi friends, my name is Les Lira. I'm with Lighthouse Arab World, and I really enjoyed learning about Phil Robertson today. As our narrator said about Phil, he was living a pretty smooth adult life, and then he hit a rough patch. During that time, alcohol, drugs, and womanizing became problems, big problems, that almost cost Phil and Miss Kay their marriage. Maybe you've recently hit a rough patch. Maybe you're in the middle of one. What's yours? Debt, a struggling marriage or family life, health issues, grief, difficult job or business circumstances? The thing is, rough spots are a great equalizer. Regardless of our background, we're all the same when tough times come, and that can lead to some pretty negative emotions and behaviors. Emotions like anger, fear, insecurity, which are all normal, but when mixed with old bad habits, that can be a problem. Things like alcohol, drugs, reckless living, porn, mindless gaming, or TV, all the exact opposite of what we need. When faced with his difficult situation, Phil asked God what to do. God heard him, and funny thing, God had Phil do something for someone else first. I want to challenge you with this. When you hit a rough patch, will you run to the Lord in His Word? Know this, there is power in the name of Jesus. Call on Him and He will hear you. When I hit rough patches, I go straight to the book of James, where he encourages us to consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. But sometimes we need answers, right? But in verse 5, he also goes on to say, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Friends, the Lord will equip and strengthen you to handle whatever life throws your way. I promise, because He promises.
Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com. Get your free strategy session valued at $1,000. Get expert advice and take your business to the next level. Visit lighthousepowerbusiness.com to schedule your session today.